Hello. So what this is on the screen, and I'll reload the page here, is my American Express account. And thus far, it's about April right now in 2025, so 4 months into the year, I've earned about 250,000 points. And those aren't just points on a screen, that translates into actual money in cash. And that does a lot for me. What it does is right here, I get nearly all of my flights free or 90+% off. I get free hotel stays when I want to. And on most of the money that I spend on a day-to-day basis, personally and for business, I get anywhere between 8 and 20% in cash back. And the reason I'm making this video is because I talk a lot about personal finance on this channel and these ideals, right? These ideas, models, frameworks. But not much of that is as applied as I would like it to be, as kind of material. And so something like what I want to talk about in the next few minutes, which is how I get these points, how to maximize your credit card rewards, and how that translates into real, serious cash for you, is a very applied form of a lot of what we talk about on this channel in relation to investing, personal finance, and really just going about decision making in a way that gets you the most of what you want. In this case, traveling, money, and really just not doing a lot of the things that waste what you already have. Now I'm going to get into this again. It'll just take a few minutes. I want to keep this straight to the point. I want to give credit first off to Lucas. Lucas, if you're watching this, you're the OG, you're the king here. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I just follow a set of kind of basic principles that have done really well for me, and I got those from Lucas, so kudos to him. So with that said, I want to get into first how exactly I do what I do. So again, just how I get all of these things: free flights, free hotel stays, and an extremely high cash back on nearly all spend. But first, I want to make one other note about personal finance as it relates to traveling, since that's what we're talking about in this video, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm currently in Thailand, in Phuket. And that starts with how browsing the internet without protection is like posting a private message on your public story. Anyone can see your memes or your browser history, but also more serious personal and financial information. And that is basically right here what happens when you go online without a VPN. And a VPN, I'll write that right here, or a virtual private network, is an app that hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection through a secure tunnel. And like I said, I'm recording this video abroad from my home in Phuket, Thailand, and so this is very relevant to me right now. And so I want to take a moment to explain why private internet access is my VPN of choice, and you can see that I have it connected and turned on right here, right now. So first, it's great because it protects you from hackers when you're on public Wi-Fi. So whether you're at a coffee shop, an airport, or even at home, PIA shields your IP address, your photos, your personal information, your messages, etc. from prying eyes. And second, it lets you access region-restricted content from anywhere in the world. I'm sure all of us at some point have been browsing on Netflix when we're traveling and we see some kind of show that just was available in our home country and isn't available now. So with servers in 91 countries and all 50 states, PIA lets you watch shows that aren't available in your region, and this is a big one to save on flights and games, and to bypass regional blackouts for sport events. In my case, I'm watching a show called I Will Find You on Netflix right now. Not available in Thailand, is available in the US, so when I turn this on, this is currently a New York server, then I can go and watch that show. And finally, what really sets PIA apart is that you can attach unlimited devices to one subscription. That means your entire household, so your phones, tablets, computers, gaming consoles, etc., all stays protected. And here's the best part. Viewers of this channel get 83% off. That's an exclusive discount, and that brings the price to $2.03 per month, plus 4 months free. So use my link piavpn.com/John Law, that is piavpn.com/John Law, or this QR code on the screen to get started with a 30-day money-back guarantee and that deal that I just spoke to. And again, it's really just a set of principles that I follow that are relatively simple. The first is I get 1 to 2 new credit cards and their intro bonuses per year. That's not a credit card a month. You can do that, but you don't have to. And really just I look for what's going to give me the best bonuses. It doesn't really matter how much I have to spend, if that's $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. It's really just how many points am I going to get per dollar that I spend. So right now for Amex, for example, I have just the Business Gold card, American Express Gold card, and the Delta Miles card. The big intro bonuses there are the Amex Gold and then the Business Gold as well. Like that's, I think, 275,000 points right there. And those are big bonuses that these credit cards companies give you just to sign up for their card. Amex have them, Chase has them, a lot of different credit card companies have them, although Chase and Amex are kind of the big two players there. So that right there is a lot of points, and that's great. And that's part of the first half of this kind of maximization equation that we're doing, which is the inflow part. And the inflow part is, well, how do I get the most amount of points? What's even more important, in my opinion, is the outflow, is how do I spend those? How do I maximize my yield or what I get for spending my points? Because it's really easy to not do that well. But the inflow matters as well, just how do you get the points, and the intro bonuses are a large part of that. That's step number one. Step number two, in terms of my kind of playbook here, is I match spend with cards that reward that spend. For example, say you spend all your money, like a high percent of your money, on restaurants. How do you spell restaurants? If this is you, then that's going to look very different in terms of the credit cards you should get and the intro bonuses you should claim to someone where most of your income goes to, let's say, a business, right? To paying people, to ad spend, just whatever that may look like. And so these two people should have different cards. And I'll give you an example with the Amex cards I have pulled up here. Right, you can see right here with global restaurants and US supermarkets, these are 4x point categories. And what that means is, by default, you get 4x the standard rewards, so kind of four points per dollar at restaurants and supermarkets for this card. Now, for this Business Gold card right here, I get 4x points at what, in my case, is a really critical category, that being, business and specifically ad spend. So in my case, a lot of my income goes into ad spend, whether that's for this YouTube channel, whether it's for products or just, business generally, also a lot of what we talk about on this YouTube channel. And so if most of, say, my income personally goes toward restaurants and ad spend, then I want to just maximize the inflow, the amount of points I get on those two categories. And so what I'm doing is I'm matching these categories, so what I spend my money on, to cards that maximize the spend in those categories. So for restaurants, right, I get Amex Gold is a 4x. Let me bring this closer to the screen, make this a little bit bigger. And then for ad spend, Business Gold is also 4x. Now the kind of standard, like the cash value you can get for points in the case of Amex is 1 cent per point, right? So by default, 4x points is kind of 4% cash back. So then how do you get to 8% up to 20%? Well, that comes down to now outflow as opposed to inflow. So these first two, these just basic how I do it, I take the amount of money that I'm spending, whatever categories those may be. In my case, a lot of food, a lot of ads, a lot of business spend, and then I match those up with cards that get good points. And then in addition to that, I get the intro bonuses on, a card, best case, highest volume case, once every few months, but really just as low as, 1 or 2 cards a year. And then I match that up with these 1 to 2 new cards and their intro bonuses per year. So by default, I'm getting a few 100,000 points for new cards, and then I'm getting 4x on my spend. So then I have these two points here. The first is just don't waste points. And what that comes down to is, well, how kind of the point systems work, and how do you actually make them work for you? There's different ways you can spend points, for example. What you'll see with most credit cards is that you can apply points to pay down your balance. Turns out that's a really, really bad way. That's a total waste of your points. You're going to get basically 1 cent per point, like in the case of, say, Amex. If you do that. So I'm getting my 4% cash back. But if I was buying, say, a business class international flight, I could get 4 or 5 cents per point. I think I froze there, but I suppose you heard me. 4 to 5 cents per point. So that's one end of the spectrum, right? 4, 5, 6 cents per point. But if I was flying an international business class flight, which we'll get into more reasonable examples, but we're getting, 4 to 5 cents. And remember, that is going to be multiplied by the 4x points. Well, now you're getting, your 20 cents kind of back per dollar that you spend, or your 20% cash back. And that's great, right? That does not happen often versus the kind of mainstay of, at least in my case, my travel, which is just economy flights. A lot of international flights, domestic as well, but economy. By default, if you take your points and you go and book a bunch of flights and you do it with some measure of intelligence, like just you don't book like the 20% of flights that are a really, really bad deal, you're going to get somewhere in the range of 2 to 4. Let's average that to 3x points. So now I'm getting, my 4x times my 3x. I'm getting basically 12% cash back on spend. And so that is, again, part of the outflow. How do I make these, let's say, 500,000 points per year? How do I really get the most out of them in terms of transferring them into actual cash? Because, again, if I just wanted to apply that to my balance to pay it down, I just have my 4%. I spend it on flights, I get 12%. Now I'm going to have to pay the balance down and buy the flights either way. So just by spending it intelligently, you can get the 12%. Again, this is just in my case. I'll generalize this in a second as well. In addition to just wasting points as a whole in general spending categories, also within those spending categories, you want to maximize the value of your points. One tool that also I'll give full credit to Lucas here that's great for this is amex.points.me. These guys basically aggregate specifically American Express rewards. There's similar tools for Chase and whatnot and other brands, so do what you will. This is just an example in line with the Amex account that I showed you earlier. So in this case, I can search here. I can go, I live in Boston, let's say Boston to London. We'll go all airports, and let's say the 25th of July. This is going to look at all the different rewards programs and the transfer capabilities and so on. It's going to aggregate all that, and it's going to show me all the flights that I can book with all the different airlines with my points. Because American Express points are not stuck in Amex. You can transfer them to all kinds of travel partners, and this ties into hotels as well. So I can look here and I can say, okay, here's a $22,000 point flight that gets me from Boston to London. Normally that would be a, $400, $500, $600 flight, whatever that may be. I have to pay $30 as well. And that's just one search. If I was hardcore looking for flights and I have a few months to book in advance, I'm going to look at every day, so I can sort by day here over a week-long period. Then I'm going to take advantage of any point transfer bonuses that are going on. So sometimes airlines will partner with a credit card provider to give you 10, 20+% kind of boost, or even 100% boost, whatever that may be on your points. And also I'm going to take certain routes depending upon the points. For example, let's say I want to, let's go back here. Let's say I want to go from Boston to Bangkok, which I happen to be in a few weeks. There's a lot of ways I could take this. I could route through Tokyo, I could route through Seattle, I could route through Hawaii. It goes on, the list goes on. So what I would do in this case, and this is what I actually did, is I would look at every different route. A tool I like for that I'll show you as well is called flightconnections.com. Because what this does is it shows you every single tool. So I'll go Bangkok as well. And now I can see all the different routes or the different stops in terms of me getting from Boston to my destination. Then I can go look at every single one of those routes in points.me, and I can find out which route is going to maximize the value of my points. So that way you're, again, kind of layering the approaches and the optimization here to ultimately just get the most bang for your buck. Excuse me. And that as a whole, as a result, is how I get tons of free flights, really, really good cash back on spend that translates into those flights. And I travel a lot, so I like to spend this on flights. If you want to spend them on hotels, you can do the same. Typically, you get less cash back. They're just not as good rewards with hotels. You can do that too. If you want to just get gift cards, buy an iPhone with points, you can do so as well. I personally travel a lot, so that's why I spend a lot of points on traveling. Generally, though, that is how I do it. Again, what I want to cover in the next few minutes here, briefly, is how you can do that too, or just I want to generalize some of these principles. I have a big advantage, which is I'm going to spend a lot of money on business. And that money, whether or not the business is profitable, has this derivative benefit of I can crack reward bonuses, so I can spend the 15 grand that I need to get 100,000 points on a new card, and I can put a lot of money through those cards to then generate points. That may or may not be you. If that is you, awesome. And the first thing that I say here is if you have any business, any money-making endeavor whatsoever, formal or informal, that is cash flow neutral or positive, so you spend $1, you get at least $1 out, use that and run that through credit cards. Because if you can crack intro bonuses with that, right, if you can just run that through cards, you're going to get the 4x points, you're going to get the 3x, 2x, 5x, whatever the number is, and you're going to get just, okay, I spend 10 grand, I get 100,000 points. And that, again, really, really counts when you're thinking about travel and all these spending categories. And if you don't, that's fine. You're going to spend some money for your daily life. You have to buy food, you have to buy rent. And for rent, actually, quick point there, I think there's a card called Built that lets you get credit card, or lets you spend your rent, kind of quote unquote buy your rent with credit cards. Be careful with that because that is, your rent, but that is a great way to get some point bonuses on your rent spend. But generally, if you do any travel, right, again, if you just buy food, anything and all that you spend, just run it through cards, and whatever intro bonuses you can get, whatever points you can get, again, going back to, well, where do you spend your money? Just line the card up to your spending categories. That's the card you want to get, the one that best matches your spending categories. And then depending on if, say, there are multiple cards with the same kind of rewards there, go for the one with the point bonus that you can reasonably spend too. For example, if you spend, let's say, $1,000 a month, and there's a certain card, let's say by Chase, that offers 30,000 points. If you spend $5,000 in 6 months, and you again spend $1,000 a month, go for that one, spend your, $5 grand over 5 months, get those 30,000 points, right? These points will materialize. At the very least, you don't need $1 million, you don't need 100,000 even. You just need enough to say, if you want to go on vacation, or just do nice things for yourself. Again, you can do what you want with these points. There's a common misconception that if you get, say, 1, 2 plus new cards a year, it's going to ruin your credit score. It's not. That's a total lie. Just pay your credit cards back. Obviously, I don't even need to say that. I've made 8 hours of videos on this channel about that. You don't want to ever miss a payment. You don't want to have a big balance on these cards, and it is really easy to. Like, these cards, they make you want to keep a balance on the card with things like pay over time. But don't just pay it back every month. It's how you roll. Your credit score will be great. Yes, there is a slight hit every time you open a new card because what's called a hard credit check is pulled. But to take, say, a 4-point hit to your credit score, which goes back up after a few months, in return for, say, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 points, which is thousands of dollars of free travel, right? Very obvious cost-benefit equation there. And what I'm not saying here is get a card a month. I'm saying get 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 cards per year. Maybe other people, do it their way with a card a month. That's not my approach at all. And again, really, just spend smart, look for deals, and this ties back as well to what do you spend on. And if you can connect the points that you have, your credit points, with what you spend on, then that's kind of the domain or the niche in which you want to look for deals. So the workflow I just went through, the approach is, flightconnections.com, amex.point.me, and then I'm figuring out how to best use my points for travel. You could do that for any number of other categories as well with different tools that are out there. Again, I said keep this quick. I would appreciate if you could subscribe. We are aiming for 1 million subscribers this year. that is the whole little system right there for hacking, in a sense. I'll use the clickbait word, your credit card points, and generally just the amount of money that you spend in your life. I hope you found this helpful. Leave a comment if you did, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
So thanks again to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. And again, make sure to check out this link, this QR code right here for that 83% off and 4 months free with a money back guarantee.